And just to say, welcome everybody who's tuning into the recording. We're meeting with Rob Clapp. It is Wednesday, December 15th here, and we're talking about the RFP for the Hamm's redevelopment. And we've just done introductions around the Zoom here. We're about to just hand things off to Rob here to help direct our conversation with some questions and some feedback that would be helpful for him and some inspiring ideas, I imagine. So, Rob, you want to take it away?
Yeah, let me see if the old share screen thing is gonna work, hopefully. Can everybody see the slide?
Nope, not yet.
Now, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so good morning, everybody. Thank you to everyone for being here this morning, and thank you again to Paris for organizing the call. I am Rob Clapp from Summit Real Estate Group, Can Wonderland in St. Paul Brewing. I'd also like to take a moment to introduce Erin, although she introduced herself previously. She's a talented community development professional and a dear friend who's part of my initial advisory committee and helping with the RFP submittal. Before I kind of get into sharing, the vision and the pitch, if you will, please note that, the reason that, I reached out to so many people and we're on this call today is really honestly seeking feedback and insights and criticism of this plan and the vision and goals of the community. And so I'm very collaborative in nature, and this thing can go a million different directions. So I really value the feedback that hopefully we'll get in the coming days, weeks, and months if we're selected for this project. So here we go. Many of you may have received an email from Erin or myself with individual invites to meet and discuss the Hamm's RFP in person or virtually. As Paris mentioned, I would have liked to have had the opportunity to conduct individual meetings. However, given how many stakeholders there are in the community, it would have been challenging to coordinate so many individual schedules prior to the new year. That being said, I am a high I on the DISC profile, which means I place a strong emphasis on relationships. And my preferred way to develop these relationships is with in-person meetings and interactions. So I hope that I can still get to meet everyone on this call and other Eastside stakeholders who I haven't already met in person or in the near future. Again, feel free to reach out to myself or Erin if you'd like to arrange a one-on-one conversation. Any follow-up regarding the Hamm's complex. The same invitation is extended to anyone else in the community that you feel we should meet with. And just know that I love meeting new people and learning about them and the organizations that they represent. I should also note that I'm supportive of ensuring that we are meeting safely. I'm fully vaxxed and boosted. And I also invested in bipolar ionization at the brewery last year to increase the air purity and safety. So if in-person meetings do not work, I'm happy to meet via phone or Zoom as well. So next slide here. A little bit about me personally and professionally. I am a St. Paul guy, although I do have to provide the disclaimer that I was not born here. Moved to St. Paul from Sarasota and Venice, Florida in the 7th grade. I have lived in every ward of St. Paul except Ward 7, but technically the brewery has been my second home for the last 2 years. So hopefully that counts for something. I've also been very involved in the community councils of the neighborhoods that I've lived in. You can see a list of some of the organizations that I've been involved with over the past 20 years. I mentioned my long history with community councils and neighborhood organizations so that I may convey to the Eastside community that I'm all too familiar with developers coming to the community only after they realize that they need something for their project. I am not that developer. My plan is to connect with as many East Side stakeholders as possible before the RFP is submitted at the end of January. And if we are selected, there will be months of additional outreach, community meetings, and listening sessions. Professionally, I began my real estate career in the early 2000s and quickly found myself focusing on the development side, where I specialized in single family and multifamily development. In 2008 and 2009, I transitioned into commercial real estate and I began specializing in the representation of breweries, restaurants, bars, and nonprofits. This is not the most lucrative niche compared to other real estate segments, but I really enjoyed the people and the entrepreneurs associated with these different groups that I developed relationships with. Around 2011, I was introduced to the Hamm's complex when I helped two longtime friends, Chris Ames and Dave Heider, purchase building 13 of the Hamm's complex, which became Urban Organics. Soon after Urban Organics, I represented John Warner with the purchase of his building for Flat Earth Brewing. And through these two transactions, I would spend countless hours exploring the ins and outs of the complex and finding myself mesmerized by the buildings and how cool they were. I did not know it at the time, but I was falling in love with the Hamm's complex. In 2013, I represented Rich Packinen of Pack Properties when he was interested in seeing there was potential to develop the Hamm's complex into housing. Rich spent several months conducting due diligence and ultimately decided that the risk was too great for the property to be developed as housing. But this provided me yet another chance to become intimate with the Hamm's complex and keep my curiosity piqued. In 2014, I became interested in opening my own hospitality establishment. A year later, Can Wonderland was born, and with it, my partners and I established Minnesota's first arts-based public benefit corporation. While the vision for Can was crystal clear to me the entire time it was being developed, I was surprised at how many people came to me after it was a huge success and said, "I thought you were crazy, never thought this concept would make it." And 5 years later, and almost 2 years into the pandemic, we still have multiple hour waits on most days. In 2018, Can Wonderland was in a good place operationally, which meant I finally had more time to think about the next venture. It was at this same time that Urban Organics and Pentair asked me to list the aquaponics building for sale. Being back at the Hamm's complex reignited my passion for the complex, and I began the planning and visioning process for how I would redevelop the Hamm's complex. I shared my vision with my landlord from Can Wonderland, and based on the success they saw firsthand at Can, they agreed to be my development partner, and we purchased the aquaponics building as we knew it would be a vital piece to the larger redevelopment. In late 2019, it was evident that my development partner had more pressing obligations with their other developments around the country, and we amicably decided that they would no longer be part of the development team. As I was starting to identify new prospective development partners, the pandemic hit and I had to hit pause on the Hamm's project. In 2020, a few months after the pandemic hit, John Warner called me one day and said, "Rob, buy my brewery. I am done." He knew I had a love for the Hamm's complex, so that's what I did. This decision turned out to be a great distraction from the pandemic, as I was able to keep all of my management team busy for 6 months as we worked outside and transformed a slab of concrete into the patio that you know today at St. Paul Brewing. Some fun facts of East Side connections for me. I bought my first house on the East Side in the 800 block of Sims Avenue. I tried to be a resident of the failed Lower Town Depot eco development in the Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary in the early 2000s. Not sure if I ever got my down payment back on that or not. And also took a series of entrepreneur and business planning classes through NDC and Dayton's Bluff in the late 2000s. And also became engaged in 2011 by hiding 3 rocks in the creek in a stream within the Bruce Vento Nature Sanctuary. The large rock said, "Regina, will you marry me?" The second rock said yes, and the third rock said no, because I wanted to make sure she had that option. And lucky for me, she said yes. And lastly, as I previously mentioned, I bought St. Paul Brewing in 2020 and 2021. Also want to mention, if anybody has anything that they want to ask as we're going through this, feel free to jump in and ask. I'm happy to kind of cover things as we go. So this slide, just kind of a site overview. You can see the different buildings that make up a large portion of the original Hamm's complex. What is not shown in this overview is the powerhouse building across Minnehaha Avenue. And for those of you that may be unfamiliar, the powerhouse building is the one with the 200-foot high smokestack. I also failed to mention, I did purchase the powerhouse building earlier this year, and I have the aquaponics building under contract, and that transaction will close by the end of the year. Next slide. So the vision of this project in my head is one that was really born out of a trip to a place called City Museum in St. Louis. And it's just really a magical place that is for people of all ages. And it's a place that started out modestly at probably 10 to 20,000 square feet, started out as a nonprofit. And 20 years later, it's grown to 100,000 square feet. It attracts 700,000 annual visitors. And again, it's just this magical place that is for everyone. And, you know, after being there several times, it just feels like every major city should have this kind of jewel in its community. So when I discovered that, you know, I was kind of on the search for, you know, something that could house something like that. And really the Hamm's Brewery Complex couldn't be a better fit, in the sense that you've got giant holes, medium-sized holes, small holes, you know, just peppered throughout these buildings in the complex. And so it naturally is a place for exploration. And that's why you have so many people trying to break in on a daily basis, trying to do the urban exploring. So just by itself, it's a place that, you know, fascinates people. And so thinking about actually programming it with other unique attractions would make it even that more special. But the vision of the project includes transforming this long vacant Hamm's Brewery Complex of challenging buildings into a hub of arts, culture, creativity, entertainment, and vibrancy. The complex will be developed into a must-see national and regional arts and entertainment destination, and a place of pride for the local neighborhood, city of St. Paul, and the state of Minnesota. This vision is an opportunity to create a transformative project that includes the following community benefits. The creation of a one-of-a-kind immersive arts attraction that will be a top 10 Minnesota attraction. I should also note that the company that would run this would be formed as a public benefit corporation. The redevelopment project will add over 100 living wage jobs that will provide much more than a paycheck. These 100 jobs are just for the first two phases, which would be the immersive arts complex and the affordable artist housing. 40 to 60 units of affordable artist housing. The project will renovate and bring to life over 300,000 square feet of historic real estate that has been vacant for 30 years. The project will deliver East St. Paul's first boutique hotel. The development will create St. Paul's first and only hostel. The redevelopment will provide increased visibility and exposure, economic opportunities to the east side and its hundreds of small businesses by way of hundreds of thousands of annual visitors traveling from the 13-county metro, greater Minnesota. In addition, we expect to draw tourists regionally and nationally. The project will supply the creation of creative outlets and economic opportunities for local East Side youth, creatives, and fabricators. A future phase of the development will include a 30,000 square foot performing arts and entertainment center that would compete with First Avenue for music talent and well-known theaters for theatrical performances. The project would add another 100 living wage jobs. Other ongoing paid opportunities for the community through the constant reimagining of the concept Paid opportunities include full and part-time employment with Beautiful Chaos, which is a working title for the immersive arts complex, the boutique hotel, hostel, and performing arts center. There's also going to be numerous independent contractor opportunities with Beautiful Chaos every year that it's in existence, as it will follow the city museum model that it's kind of always building and always changing. And then there's also design and idea compensation for those ongoing projects. So community engagement and participation. I touched briefly on our commitment to community engagement in the second slide, but I want to reiterate how important it is to me to have as much community buy-in as possible. When I'm out and about in this neighborhood, I want the community to be proud of the redevelopment. And the only way that that will be accomplished is through intentional and meaningful community engagement. We've already met with a handful of community stakeholders and have received valuable feedback that we intend to implement into the development. A couple of quick examples that have come to fruition just in the last week or so includes the feedback that we've heard about the concern of too many affordable housing developments not being permanently affordable. So we're taking this feedback, and it's our intention to convince our housing partner to convert the affordable artist housing into an artist cooperative when the tax credits expire. Also heard back feedback from Carol Carey, who I've known for many years, and informed me that there may be an original Sweet Hollow structure located on a city-owned parcel. That just kind of blew my mind, especially after reading, the book about Sweet Hollow, to know that one of those structures still exists. And so we talked at length about some of the things that the History Center have done. In Carol, do you remember the name of that exhibit?
Sorry about that. Yes, it is. If These Walls Could
Walls
Talk.
Could Talk. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So fascinating exhibit. And, so thinking in that context, something similar to taking that structure and incorporating it into the development so that people can learn that fascinating history of Sweet Hollow and all the people that came before us. So hopefully that could be, a collaboration with Historic St. Paul and the History Museum. If we are selected for the RFP, we'll begin an extensive campaign of community outreach and listening sessions. Another fun way we plan to engage the community in this project is to invite the community to tour the complex as soon as it's deemed safe enough. And, we label kind of all the different rooms, nooks and crannies of the complex and invite people to give us their ideas of what they would do with those spaces. And for the ideas that we do choose, we would be providing a fee for the design or the idea. And then for people that are a little bit more competent in their building skills, if they want to actually build something and we choose that idea, they could be compensated for the design and the build out. So really a way to bring the community in. There'd also be a virtual opportunity for people to participate that couldn't visit physically. To the right of the slide, you can see the list of community stakeholders we have identified and reached out to. Some of these organizations we have already met with, some we have appointments scheduled with, and some we are just waiting to hear back from. Please let us know if there's anyone else that we should be reaching out to. I anticipate this list will grow and grow. And honestly, I'm happy to meet with anyone. This is kind of my full-time job for the next 30 plus days, and more so if we're selected. So Beautiful Chaos. Again, Beautiful Chaos is a working title that's kind of born out of just every time I've gone through those buildings, like that's how I feel about it. There's just this beautiful chaos to it where, you know, it's chaotic, but it's also lovely at the same time. And it's just not, it's such a fortress, and, you know, it's just, you know, you can throw anything you want at it, but it's not going anywhere. So I'm just mesmerized by the physicality of it. And it's the way that they just added on, and, you know, they would just add a room, add a floor, add a building. There wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason except whatever they needed. They just added some square footage for whatever their need was at the time. So again, working title, we'll probably, you know, shop a bunch of different names. But the idea for Beautiful Chaos, it would be the anchor commercial tenant, be an interactive, immersive, and exploratory experience. It would be a minimum of 50,000 square feet, built over several phases. The first phase would probably come in right around 30,000 square feet. For those that, you know, are curious about this concept, I would encourage you to take a look at Meow Wolf, who now has 3 locations. They started their original Meow Wolf in Santa Fe at the same time that we started Can Wonderland, and you know, they visited us when we were building out. We visited them, and so very much kind of colleagues in the space, but they, you know, went to a whole different level. And if you just Google Meow Wolf, there's hundreds of articles written about them. They've attracted a lot of institutional investments, and thus expanding into all these different cities. And the original Meow Wolf in Santa Fe was about 30,000 square feet. I think they attracted 300,000 visitors their first year, and it grew from there. City Museum we talked about. Meow Wolf is a little bit more on kind of tech experience. City Museum is much more kind of physical and tactile, and I would say that this leans a little bit more towards the City Museum style. House on the Rock is also something that, you know, is just you know, a really interesting place to visit, and, you know, you don't know what's around the next corner, so it would have a little bit of that vibe as well. So the other piece of Beautiful Chaos is it wants to be an employer that people are just eager to work for, not just a place that's, you know, paying people. And this wants to be transformative for the people that work here. And so that would start with you know, living wage pay, which, you know, here at Can and the brewery, we're well above $15 an hour for all of our employees, and that's been the case Can for over a year now. Same thing for the brewery. So everything is a tipless model. So we believe in the equity of back of the house and front of the house. So everybody starts at the same wage. But we also want to invest in the training of our staff. We realize that there's a lot of unemployed youth on the east side. And so that's, you know, actually a good thing for us in the sense that a lot of these will be great jobs for younger employees in the youth of the east side. So we want to make sure that, you know, they're trained for the job at hand, but we also want to invest in soft skills, leadership training, and that would be done through partnerships with outside organizations that have more experience in that youth development. And lastly, you know, being a transformative employer means trying to find a way to share in the success of the concept. So we'll be looking at several different models, you know, everything from a worker cooperative, ESOP, employee ownership trust, and or profit sharing. So we want the employees to be there for as long as possible, and we want to share in the success of that. Next slide. Affordable artist housing and makerspace. So we'll be bringing in a partner for this RFP, and the partner that we've identified, I don't know that we're able to go public with that at this time, but the developer is one that would be well known to St. Paul and the East Side, extensive experience in affordable housing and developing large complex real estate projects. So really excited about having them as our partner. But they'll probably be taking the lead on the housing side of it. But we've had several housing developers approach us about possibly partnering up with us. And the one thing that I've been kind of adamant about for the vision of this complex is that it would be artist housing, just because I feel I want artists, to live there that hopefully are contributing to beautiful chaos as paid opportunities, and just lending credence to the vibe, the creative vibe that we're trying to accomplish. And to my knowledge, I don't believe the East Side has any artist housing, so we'd be excited to bring that to the East Side. 40 to 60 total units is what's kind of being targeted. I should note that right now that's being targeted for the aquaponics building, as the rest of the complex is just very challenging to do housing, given the different floor plates and lack of windows in areas, and fire, life safety, and egress. So the aquaponics building is a natural fit for housing, as it's just a nice rectangle traditional building. We also want to have maker space, and that could be also open to the public. A little too soon to know how that might work out, but for sure there would be a maker space kind of fabrication studio for the artists, where they'd have access to woodworking shops, ceramics, photography, metalwork, etc. And then, as I mentioned previously, we'll definitely press our partner on the idea of this turning into a artist cooperative after the tax credits expire. The Hamm's Hotel and Hostel. So because this has the potential of attracting 300 to 700,000 annual visitors a year, we feel that a hotel would be a great amenity to the complex. It wouldn't be in the first phase; it would be after beautiful chaos is built. But for 40 to 50 rooms, we're very confident that just the beautiful chaos would be able to support this size boutique hotel. And this would also be another first for the East Side as far as a boutique hotel. I'm not including the kind of national flags that are out there by 3M. So the hotel would reflect the creativity of the complex being developed. Each room would be independently designed by accomplished artists and designers, giving each room a unique identity that beckons for travelers and locals alike to keep coming back. The hostel would be serviced by the hotel, probably in the same building. And we're envisioning 6 dorm rooms with 4 beds each, possibility of a couple individual rooms, but roughly around 24 total beds, 5,000 square feet. To my knowledge, it'd be the first and only hostel in St. Paul. And this would also provide a lodging opportunity for budget conscious travelers or those looking for more of a communal experience. And again, the hostel would be managed by the hotel and share in the hotel amenities. Cidery, winery, and cafe, that would be located in building 3, which is along the park. For the first phase, we're envisioning needing to use this building as a staging and construction office building. There's not a lot of staging area in this complex, so that's kind of an important piece of it. And it's a small enough building, standalone, that we could kind of get in there, get it turned on, allow us to manage the rest of the larger project from that building. And then once the first two phases are complete, then we'd be able to turn this into a cidery, winery, and cafe. We have St. Paul Brewing, and we have 11 wells producing, the brewery is producing craft beer, hard seltzers, root beer, and kombucha. 11 wells is obviously producing small batch craft spirits. So we want to round out that beverage option by including winery and cidery. So a lot of people might be skeptical of how a winery can happen in Minnesota, but if you look at, there's a lot of kind of these individual or small wineries that basically import wine out of California, and then they make their own blends. So there's a great one up in the near Lutzen, and a couple in Minneapolis. And then obviously the cafe piece would incorporate all the beverages from 11 Wells, the brewery, the cidery, and the winery, and have its own unique menu. This would be, just a kind of a great space to enjoy the park. We hope to have a small little dog area and sculpture park that in that green space. And also connection to the Bruce Vento nature trail. Powerhouse Performing Arts and Entertainment Center. So over at the Powerhouse building across the street, we're envisioning a 30,000 square foot venue separated into two distinct performance areas. The turbine room of the Powerhouse will be a live music, entertainment, and events venue. This room has a capacity of 700 to 1,200 guests. This is very similar in size to First Avenue. And when you look at the landscape of St. Paul as far as live music goes, there is a gap in that kind of 700 to 1,200 people. There's a lot in that, 100 to 300, and then you kind of jump into that 2,000 to 5,000. So I do think that this is a need for St. Paul. The lower level could be used for additional community uses, rehearsal space, music education. The lower level has an existing tunnel that runs under Minnehaha Avenue to connect the Powerhouse to the rest of the Hamm complex, which is really cool. The boiler room of the Powerhouse will be hopefully live theater, entertainment, and events venue. Capacity of the boiler room will be 400 to 700 guests, and the lower level could also be used for additional community uses, rehearsal space, classroom space, etc. One thing I should note is I have a good friend that started the Hook and Ladder in South Minneapolis, and they are running that as a nonprofit that actually runs the performance center. So been in talks with him about if that same model could be applied to this building, and there's some excitement for that as a possibility, but this would definitely be a later phase, so a little bit down the road. This is kind of the project phasing as we've laid out. As most of you know, in developments, many things can change as we get into the building and start doing due diligence, and architects get involved and all that stuff. But here's a kind of a snapshot of, in a perfect world, how this would lay out. So for sure, it's a phased project. I mean, in total, to do all this, you're talking 40 to 50 million, which is just a big number. And so we want to do this intelligently and manage it in kind of small chunks. So first phase is kind of the pre-development. Second phase, beautiful chaos, develop that anchor tenant. The anchor tenant kind of brings everything else along with it. And we've got a history of this being true with Can Wonderland. We were the first tenant in that building. It was a 300,000 square foot complex. We were the first ones to sign a lease in that building, and we got a really good price for it. But I told the developer at the time that as soon as we get up and running, we're going to start attracting other tenants that want to be near us. And sure enough, that's what happened. The building's probably 90% fully occupied, and the rents have doubled, if not more, since we signed our lease. So this would definitely be an anchor that will draw all these other uses. And phase 3, complete the affordable housing. That might be able to, be in part of phase 2, but again, just have to wait and see how that shakes out. Phase 3 would also be the winery, cider, and cafe, the hotel and hostel, and additional space for beautiful chaos. So that's kind of the pitch, and I'm excited to hear any questions or concerns or feedback.
Rob, thank you. So one of the things that I'm just this on top for me is that this is a complete vision. there's a lot of detail on this vision. I'm going to look to Ann here. Ann's got a hand raised. Go ahead and Rob, if you want to, you can just stop screen sharing. We can all look at each other.
Sure.
If folks have questions in the chat, also just watch and direct if you want to raise your hand or gesticulate wildly or however you want to get into the conversation. Ann, go ahead. Ann, you're muted. Ann, you're on mute.
Damn, I hate when that happens. Sorry. Okay, I have several questions, but I'll start with this one about the beautiful chaos. And I know it's too soon to get into operational aspects of it, but I remember being on a community committee when the Science Museum was proposing to move to its current location. And one thing that came out from the community is, will it be financially accessible for the neighbors that, on the west side? I know there was strong voices on the west side that were concerned about that. So whether it's structured as a for-profit or a nonprofit, if you can incorporate some consideration for that, for vouchers for schools and children, that kind of, and maybe it's one of our neighborhood groups that helps with that, but don't want to lose sight of that, because you don't want to have a beautiful entertainment venue that the community surrounding it can't access just because of financial restraints. And one other thought is, you noted that Can Wonderland was one of the first developments in the creative enterprise zone, and then others follow. And then just hopefully we're all conscious that also doesn't become development that displaces current residents or just makes it, a fortress that the neighbors can't access. So, and I think it's the neighborhood groups that help make that happen. So I invite you to reach out to us at any time, and I'm sure the district councils are going to be a great resource in guiding you through that.
Rob, you're on mute now. Okay, Ann, thank you so much. Yeah, well, let me back up. Paris, you mentioned that it's, a lot of detail in there. I've been I've been thinking about this place for almost 10 years and really thinking about it for the last 4 years. And so if you came to my office, you'd see, I've got just filing cabinets after filing cabinets of the ideas and for this complex. So yes, I spend a lot of time in my head thinking about this and thinking about so many different details of it. But yes, to answer Ann's concern about accessibility for the community, absolutely, there'd be a component where there'd be a special community rate for those on, I'd have to figure out how those geographic boundaries get, but primarily, just call it the east side would have a special rate. If you show your ID and it's a certain zip code, we definitely want to do that. And as far as school kids, yeah, this, I won't be doing my job if I don't extend to all the kids of St. Paul that they have the right to come here and experience this. So love the school vouchers and would welcome the best way to try and implement that similar to what other museums have done.
Don, go ahead.
Thanks. So kind of similar question. So thinking about the benefit as well as any sort of possible detriment is thinking about, I have a bunch of questions too, but the one that came to mind is traffic and parking. As I mentioned, our name is Railroad Island, and it's not just a fanciful name. Railroad Island is actually an island. There are 4 entry and exit points to get into the neighborhood. And it's tight, and the main area, Payne Avenue, is the business area. We've worked for a long time about slowing down traffic as people who go through there. So it's not that we are a highway to get from downtown to the east or the north. We're a neighborhood. And so there's concerns about how traffic would get there, given that we are right off of 52, 35, and 94. It might be one of the main ways in which people would be getting to the facility. They might also be coming in over West 7th and Arcade and down that way too. But I'd have concern about traffic. If we're having a big event at an event at the artist space or the performance space, would we have backups through Payne Avenue when it'd be deadlocked traffic or something like that? And then the other thing is, while parking has been an issue that's been talked about a lot, and the city has just said with development projects, pretty much the parking requirements are no longer really there. The reality is, if you're having 300 to 700,000 people visiting you every year, while I hope a lot of those people take advantages of buses and light rail and other sorts of, and bikes and walking to get there, and I know that cars are going to be coming. And where are those going to go? You do have some existing space for parking right now. So I don't know if you had any plans of developing that space with additional buildings, or if you're going to leave that for parking and use the parking to the north of Minnehaha by the powerhouse area as well. So I'll just leave it at those 2 things: traffic and parking.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So I've kind of got my top 10 challenges list of my concept, and parking is right there along with traffic. The good news on the traffic side is for these kind of operations, they typically, I would say 60% of the business is done on nights and weekends. So a little bit counter to your normal daytime business traffic. So that's helpful. But there's also going to be, having to think about, I look at the state building that's right there on 7th near the the car wash place that has just a sea of probably, 500-600 parking stalls that are primarily vacant, especially on nights and weekends. So that could be an opportunity where, we're running a shuttle, which I timed the other day. It's, 2 minutes to, go from there into the complex. And, if it's that busy, then you can justify, the shuttle kind of running every 15 minutes. So that's a possibility. There is the surface parking lot that exists within the complex currently. We all know that structured parking is very expensive. So that's something that, we have to just see if it's a possibility. You're right that we all hope that more people are taking public transportation and bikes and but one thing that is a trend now is people are still developing parking structures, but they're asking the architects and the designers to look at how might this parking structure convert into something else in 20 years when mass transit is more readily available. So if we did that, that's something that we would look at. And then lastly, there's still a tremendous amount of surface area across the street that the Gelbs own, and they are capitalists. And so if there's a way for them to see some financial gain by renting out their parking lot, they will do so.
Hey, Rob, also just wanted to note, we've got Dayton's Bluff Community Council that joined after we did introductions. So happy to have DBCC on the call too. Is that Veronica or Rebecca or? Hey, Rebecca Nelson. Good to see you on the call. Just wanted to say hey to you and see. So other questions, folks, for Rob. Rebecca, you unmuted, so say hi.
Well, hi, I apologize for hopping on late. I had something going on prior to this.
No sweat, we're glad you're here.
Thanks. So my hair looked stupid and I had to put my makeup on while you were talking as I was listening. So yeah, I apologize for that. So hi, Robert. My name is Rebecca Nelson, not Dayton's Bluff Community Council, but I am representing Dayton's Bluff Community Council today. I'm the board chair, and I'm also the board chair of the Payne Phelan Community Council. So both of those are very interconnected, and I'm still trying to absorb everything that you've talked about. Parking again was one thing that popped into my head right away, and how the issues of logistically trying to get to the venue. But other than that, I'm still listening.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Amazing project. So thank you.
Rob, I have a question that's a little off the train of what I'm usually thinking about, but is forefront in some ways for me. Just thinking about sustainability. We've had some conversations with big East Side roofs about cooperative solar. How would we put a cooperative solar garden together that residents could also buy into? This Cooperative Energy Futures has a model that we've been talking to East Side big roofs about. We talked across the street to the Everest folks about that. And anyway, we haven't really figured out where that could live yet on the East Side. The Everest folks weren't interested in it, though they have a perfect roof for it, honestly. So anyway, just thinking about ways that your project could also be a demonstration in that way to say, look, how does sustainable practice, sustainable energy work here, and how do they work for the East Side? That's just one of those things that's on my priority list. A couple clicks down, I saw some folks nodding. But anyway, what are your thoughts about power and sustainability with this project?
Yeah, thank you. There's just so many things that you can't fit into everything, but sustainability, it's a huge complex. So, and we have the opportunity. It's a shell. Like that whole complex is a shell. Everything's been stripped out, so you're starting from absolute scratch. And so there's no reason that we wouldn't make that building as efficient as possible and take advantage of, the latest and greatest efficiency technologies. One of the things that I'm really interested in trying to explore is you've got that roughly 2-acre surface parking lot that's part of this RFP. And to me, that's a natural for geothermal. And there's also other technologies that have emerged in that same kind of camp. I think the Malcolm Yards has done something over there that's kind of pretty cutting edge. So we definitely want to look at that. As far as, for sure, we want to try and implement solar, the same thing with that surface parking lot. We can create structures that have panels, so it is producing electricity, providing shade for the people that are parking. If that does become a structured parking, then we could top that with solar panels. The actual roof space of the complex is actually very small. It's only 27,000 square feet when you add up all those rooftops. So probably not a lot of opportunity there. I don't know from an efficiency standpoint that it would work. I think solar usually wants to be on flat roofs, but if there could be something done with that giant smokestack and skin that thing with photovoltaics, that would be cool too.
Nice, Rob. Okay, thank you for that. I have just one follow-up question that is unrelated, but thank you. So thinking about that surface lot, that 2 acres would also be ideal, yeah, for a cooperative solar garden. Right down Bruce Vento from you is the Lower Phelan Creek Project's proposed Wakantipi Center that they're working on real hard. Another awesome attraction, and I think connecting to that history and present, as when you mentioned like the Sweet Hollow structure, there's also an indigenous-led, indigenous focused cultural center just down the block from down this creek from this. So would hope that would also be something that we're thinking about, how we're making that connection with our community and within our community. So just a comment.
Yeah, the other thing that didn't touch on is the daylighting of the creek. So I would love nothing more than to be a part of trying to make that happen in whatever capacity. It sounds like there's a group that's leading that charge. So if we were selected, would definitely be on board with helping however we could on that.
If you need any of those contacts, yeah, let me know. Jim, go ahead.
I got to get going, but I just want to say, Rob, if you can pull this off, you are going to be a hero. And I wish you the best of luck. And if there's anything I can do to help you, you just let me know.
You'll be getting a call.
I got my own vision for that big building. I want aerialists on fire swinging from them beams. We'll put on a show if you get control of it. The city folks are too nervous about my vision.
You're my guy, Jim. You're my guy.
Thanks, Jim Urchel. Have a great day. We are at the top of the hour. So how do folks feel about staying on and further questions? Are there other questions to ask of Rob? Go ahead, Don.
Sure. I think I have this one here. You mentioned as you were talking about your experience with the site and the other projects that have been involved in it that you've been on, you said at some point there was a group that was looking at housing and then they eventually abandoned it because of the problems with the housing. So can you talk a little about, without revealing anything you can't, but just your experience of what was most problematic about it and how do you see not running into that same problem?
Sure. So one of the biggest things is just the fact that the campus, the complex is so chopped up with so many different buildings and floors, and if you walk through there, I mean, you'll get lost. It's not, the fourth floor goes all the way across, one building's got 4 floors, the next building next door has 5 floors. And so it's just really chopped up, and it makes it challenging, from a build out standpoint and an operational standpoint. The other big thing is that in order to make this kind of project work, you'd really need historic tax credits. And because the campus is split, on both sides of the street, early indications have been that in order to get that historic designation, you'd really need to designate the entire campus. And you've got, now you've got so many different private owners, the Gelbs and 11 Wells and the brewery and the aquaponics. And so everybody would have to be on board. And, I don't think it's any secret, the Gelb side, which is a big piece, they would have no interest in designating theirs historic. So it's not definitive that, the other side couldn't be designated by itself. But my understanding is that it would be a very long and expensive process to find out. And so there's some of the risk as well.
Yeah, I wonder if even because, both Hope and the police building are also part of the original campus too. And
Yep,
If they
that's
would-
true. Yep.
So you mentioned that, and so would it be different for you then? Is that everything would be then in an aquaponics building as opposed to a developer was looking at the buildings that you're going to utilize in other ways? Is that
Correct.
the difference?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
And Paris, I just wanted to acknowledge there's some good suggestions in the chat. So
I was just thinking that too, Ann. Thank you. Yeah, and I saw Aaron responding to some of those. So I think probably the team is picking those up. But yeah, fantastic support in the chat and some great ideas from people too. Rob, you can take a look at those. I'll hold the meeting open, or Aaron's got them on notes.
Yeah, I'm copying them right now.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, other thoughts about this, everybody? I'm blown away, really, Rob, by the scope of it and by how cool I think it would be. Robin, go ahead.
I actually, my first thought when you got done was just, wow. All the different components. So very much echoing what Paris said, of all the different components of the housing and the cafe and the hotel and just all of it. Wow, this would just be so great.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to, one of the things that, I've listed on the challenges list is that it is an ambitious project. And sometimes I question how much I should share about, my thought out vision for this. But I also remind myself that, everything that's being proposed is absolutely doable, and it's been proven in other markets and with all these other establishments. So, and the other piece to it is it seems, very grandiose and a lot going on, but that's also why it's broken out into phases. And so it's absolutely doable, and having that anchor tenant allows all these other things to happen. So,
Rob, so sorry, Robin, did you want to say more? Okay, just one other thing, and I don't even know how to articulate this exactly. I don't know. I'll think about it, and maybe it will come out differently in some other form. So I'll just, there's always kind of an uphill battle to some degree, but especially on the east side, from some folks about, do we need an artist space? Do we need more galleries? There's some pushback about what the east side is and how it integrates with visions like this. I'd say there's also a part of the east side that's all about, like, how do we innovate and get something new here and make something great here and pull us all together around it. There's that push and pull spectrum. And I appreciate, I just want to say, I appreciate that you front loaded this conversation, and I think you should continue to. So it's just kind of in a way of that to say, look, I'm committed to St. Paul. I've been a part of St. Paul, and I'm committed to the East Side and want your input and your vision for how this continues to look like your community too. All of that, I think, is really, kind of from that perspective goes long lengths, I think, toward inviting people into something that I think is, it won't be what they have thought of as your usual artist contribution or artist space. So I just want to kind of credit the way that you did that. And maybe there are other folks on this call who know the East Side too, who would have suggestions for how you start sharing with people or who you connect with about that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we definitely welcome, how we can make this as inclusive as possible. The other thing that I would really seek guidance on is just that gentrification, that nervousness about the gentrification. And, I think that's a really a tough subject to try and figure out, but I'm all ears, and, we'll do our own exploration on how we can, best minimize those concerns. But please, if anybody's got examples of projects or other developers that have done a great job, or other cities or projects, your own ideas, we are really seeking that guidance on that front. One thing that you mentioned about, other kind of needs of the East Side as far as development. The one thing with this complex is that I realized several years ago is after, Rich passed on the housing, and I consider Rich one of the most creative, housing developers that I know, that is not scared of challenging projects. So, you can't do office space again because of, how the floor plates are. And it's also just the economics, wouldn't work right now, especially when you have, 25+% of downtown St. Paul vacant. So office isn't a possibility. Industrial manufacturing isn't a possibility, just because it's, again, too chopped up, and you need, ground level, you need loading docks and drive-in doors. So industrial manufacturing doesn't work. So really the only thing that you're left with is creative reuse or housing. And doing housing in the normal complex has been proven to be challenging, or you just have to throw a tremendous amount of subsidies at it to make it go. And then there's creative reuse, which I'm proposing. And then sadly, the only other option is demolition. And so I don't think, I know nobody on this call wants to see that.
Rob, that's really helpful too. And just helping our community members kind of get their hands around that thinking is going to help as well. And I think the truth is the East Side has lots of redevelopment opportunity. And we've got, we're talking to Ann and Don and Robin and Rebecca, and Jim on the call. Like, we can put what we need on the East Side lots of places, and the question, like, what could we do with Hamm's? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's just a great creative opportunity for our community to get their hands on it. And I love that also one of the things that you proposed, and just so to kind of final exclamation point on this, like, if you were to get this proposal, this isn't the end of the conversation, right? Like, no, it's the beginning of the conversation with the community about how to build what we'd like to see here, what you'd like to see, what you envision. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, on that note, so some of you, might have heard, we were trying to bring the aquaponics business back. All the equipment is still there, and that's been the intent until this housing. It was identified that the aquaponics building is the most, the best fit for housing. So I mean, that just kind of revealed itself in the last couple of weeks. So I've been working on trying to get the aquaponics space back up and running. I've got a team and they're kind of working through the business plan. But if we are selected for the RFP, it seems very likely that that building would go housing. And so we still want to see this aquaponics. It would be a nonprofit. We still want to see that come online. So I asked, this group to think about other areas on the east side that this equipment could move to. There's a group that's passionate about getting it up and running. I also, we had early conversations with Urban Roots. I think at the time when we were having those conversations, the leadership just kind of transitioning over and them trying to find a new location for themselves. Everything was a little bit overwhelming, but they definitely, have a need for more year-round opportunities for their youth. And so, indoor agriculture is the perfect vehicle for them to be able to be engaged with their constituents and their youth year-round. And so I'm a partner with the equipment. And if there's ideas of where we can put this, I'd welcome that conversation as well.
And
Just a quick question on that, is what kind of building can accommodate the equipment? Does it have to be several stories? What does it need to look like?
see, we're already solving the problems of where things could go on the east side. Go ahead.
Yeah, ideally it's a one-level building to keep operations efficient. Right now the aquaponics has a floor plate of 8,500 square feet. So ideally it would be probably 20,000 square feet with 15 to 15 plus foot ceiling height.
Okay, thank you.
Carol had a question. Oh, and then Rebecca, do you want to ask a question too? Okay, Carol, then.
Yeah, I kind of more of a comment than anything else. I appreciate Rob, your willingness to reach out and share your vision and get feedback with everybody. I think that it's great to have it in the visioning stage and not, be able to incorporate that feedback in the visioning stage. And as well as I appreciate all of the feedback. I think, looking at the chat and hearing the comments, the people that are participating in the discussion are being really generous with their ideas. And I think that that's a great opportunity for you to develop a concept that is more reflective of the kind of some of the wide range of things that are happening in the neighborhood. I also want to say that, when I first heard or was trying to digest the overall concept, it was like, okay, there's a lot going on here. But, going through it, I think that there is a level of cohesiveness in the overall plan and how the pieces fit together. And although some of those elements might swap out, as things evolve and as it gets implemented, I do appreciate the fact that it does hold together as an overall concept for the site. So I would encourage you to keep it diversified like that, because I think a one size fits all concept for the site probably wouldn't work.
Thank you, Carol. Yes.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay, so I kind of echo Carol's comments in that I think it's really great that everything, you've put this together and it's really well thought out and you're including all kinds of things and you've done your due diligence, especially with the native aspect component. I do want to reemphasize that you need to keep first and foremost in your mind that you are on Dakota land and you need to reach out to more besides indigenous roots, like Anne has put in the chat also. And I know that you've talked to Walk and Teepee and things like that and talked. I'm really glad that you brought up the daylighting because that's a very, very big part of that area. So I'm encouraging you to reach out to Oyate Hotanen they know a lot of more, a huge amount of, there is a humongous Native artist groups in the cities that don't get play, that don't get, acknowledgement. So that's a huge component. Don had also brought up the American Indian Family Center as someone to talk to. And I think that's a very, very good partner. Because I'm on the board, are busting at the seams in our little, where we are, our little nonprofit. So we're also looking for a bigger place. However, in the meantime, our youth program has been looking and for a couple years about creating a jobs program for our youth and opening up a cafe. We started thinking about maybe adding in that little component as a Inside Out LLC to the American Indian Family Center, to the nonprofit that we belong to, that we have. And so that maybe is something that you could include in that, in what you're doing. It's just a thought, it's not but it's, it's worth, because I know that you've got all these other things going on, and it's really impressive how much you've thought about it and how many things that you put into this project. So again, I'm impressed. But I just have those couple little things to add to it. So
Thanks, Rebecca.
thank you.
I love it. Rebecca, who was the person that you recommended to reach out to as far as connections to Native artists?
Oyate Hotanen is the group, and it's Laurel LeBlanc, or Crystal Norcross, but Laurel is probably a better contact.
Okay.
And I have
Rob?
Laura's email, and I can connect Rob and Laura.
There you go.
Thanks,
Okay.
Steph.
Great. Thank you.
Don wanted to jump in again, I think. Don?
And I just feel like I'm becoming an echo of what's been said, and really it's just this idea is that, I know that we're just kind of the starting point, and I know you've been reaching out for some time, but that I would just continue to encourage that it'd be so important to go beyond who we are. And there's been so many generous suggestions of those other groups and other communities to bring into this. One thing similar to maybe some sort of way of attracting local people and to it, like people were saying with customers or visitors to this, is also in terms of looking at the jobs, and some of that's already been in there in terms of looking at how existing youth development partners in the neighborhood. But I would say that same sort of thing too, is if you can find some way to incentivize getting staff for all the different sort of aspects of this from the local east side would be fantastic. And I think that's the way of bringing it in. It might be either by bringing them in to be workers for you, or whether it be creating a space within these spaces for existing nonprofits or maybe smaller businesses to have a long-term partnership, not just this initial consultation. I think that's the way to keep this from being gentrification, is that we don't push out businesses, that we actually bring them in, and that permanently bring them in as part of this process, and creating opportunities for them and perhaps their amazing creative ideas to this project, whether it be small cafes or whatever they might be. And like Jim was saying, if we can have people flaming on trapeze flying through places, that'd be fantastic. And you have your neighbor right there who maybe can help with that. So
Yeah.
Thanks, Don.
and like everyone else said, also another echo, just amazing to see it, and to see it as this large scale concept for the whole thing.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah, the other thing that I'll add, we've talked about, making sure that we're connecting with the right groups and the organizations. But, there's also just citizens, residents of this community that, aren't necessarily on committees or boards, or, part of an organization that have a lot of passion and insight and ideas. And so those are the people that we're also seeking. We'll be, if we get selected, we'll be forming an advisory committee that, wants to be well-rounded and well-represented. And these will be, it'd be a paid opportunity. So if you have ideas of, who should be at that table, we definitely want to hear that as well.
Great. I also noticed that Rami has, nope, she's gone. She came and went. All right, everybody, we're coming up on the 10:30 mark. We haven't talked specifically, the Hmong community landed in the chat. We haven't talked specifically about the African American, the Black community on the east side. Just continuing to increase the awareness of folks to kind of incorporate as we think about visions. But one of the other things I just want to kind of finish on, I mean, yeah, that's important, Rob, for sure. But just to kind of finish on, in one of our other conversations, folks on this call, we talked about a larger 30,000 foot vision for developing the east side. And I think some of what we're talking about, as if Rob were to get this RFP and you pulled the process forward, as we're starting to hear community conversations about where their dreams, desires, and visions take them, I think we need to be thinking more about how would we use this kind of asset, the thing you're describing, Rob, to help develop other components of the east side or other places on the east side where some of these other things could land. This is exactly the kind of project I think that takes us forward into that kind of thinking with a lot of momentum. So, just to say, I think that's, Rob, I hope you will also think about in your conversations as you're hearing things and people are saying things and you're like, yeah, I'm not sure that belongs in my project, to also be looking back toward us. But I've got allies and we've got friends on the east side who are also working on development. Let's work together and figure out where that does go. So please think about us as also spokes in a larger development momentum. I think that's what's emerging for me as we kind of do this. More allyship, and a lot of you who've worked on the east side for a long time already have that. This is another opportunity for more of us to get involved with that big snowball. So thank you, Rob, for this incredible vision. Please do, think about us as your referral partners for some of those ideas that we know need to get heard or want to get heard by folks who may not be talking to us yet.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And then again, thank you so much for taking, this hour and a half. It means a lot to me. I think most everybody we've reached out to, so hopefully you should have our direct contact info. If not, I think a lot of people know how to get a hold of Aaron. And lastly, Stephanie knows how to connect everybody. She's been great about that. So I look forward to continuing the conversation. And if anything jumps out at you after this meeting that you want to get off your chest, please reach out, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.